Okay, this week we're going to focus on some drawing skills. So we've done a bit of desktop publishing, time to think about the other elements of the course. And again, you'll need this when we come back into the classroom. You'll need to be able to understand this sort of stuff so that you can actually use Inventor and work Inventor. Inventor will do all this work for you apart from during the assignment. So we do still need to practice these elements of orthographic drawing. So orthographics, start with orthographics and we'll move to some 3D sketching during the week if we can get the orthographics done. Orthographics, I'm going to start from scratch for those who have never done it before. An orthographic is what we use to help show what needs to be manufactured. So it's there to help the people making the product. So it will do that through a number of two-dimensional views. So orthographic is always two-dimensional views. So it's looking at it and saying, right, what does it look like from the front, from the sides, from the tops, and then any other detail that we need to think about while we're doing that. So orthographic consists of front elevation, plan, and end elevations. If you've done practical woodwork, this is what tells you what you're doing in your in the actual course. It tells you what you're making. So you should have a basic idea of this if you've covered practical woodwork. It's not going to be brand new to you. If you've done design and manufacture, you'll know what this is. And of course, if you've done graphics, you'll know what this is. If you've never done anything since first year, you might have missed some of our extended stuff we do in first year now with orthographics and stuff. But it's similar to what we do on Inventor, except we're doing it by hand. Before we get going, there's some line types which I'm going to discuss so that you can use them correctly. Now, normally we do this as a lesson in the classroom, so it will get covered again when you come back into school. Two things, if you are drawing normally in the classroom, you'll have one of these, which is a 2H pencil, which draws really lightly. If I was to do a construction line, so construction lines are lines which are nice and light, which help us build the object on the piece of paper. My construction line, if I'm doing this in the classroom, is that, which is very, very light. The pencil itself won't actually go much darker than that. That's probably about as dark as I would put it. The other alternative, once we've worked out what we're actually drawing, what the shape of the object is, we come back in with an HB pencil. This is a little bit darker than HB, but we would outline. So this is a construction. This is an outline. This is reserved for the edges of the object alone and nothing else. Constructions don't get rubbed out. You just leave them on your page. Okay, they're there to show me how you have made the object. Okay, and they're good to have. It used to be that you got marked on your construction rather than just the actual object itself in the old exams. So we've got construction, we've got outline. The other lines which we'll deal with, I'm going to do mine darker actually. I'm going to use the darker pencil purely so you can see it on the actual pad here. If I went with my construction lines, you'll never see what I'm actually doing. Next line we're going to deal with is hidden detail line, which is a short dash. Dash with a gap. Okay? And if I've got an object, and here's the two edges of the object, and if I'm putting hidden detail in, then I will not do it like this, where I leave gaps at the end. That's wrong. This is the correct way. Start it on one, finish it on one, and then connect in between. And you can kind of vary. Trying to keep the length of these the same, the gap the same each way, but you can kind of vary that. That is the correct way to do this. Okay? Wrong, correct. If I'm going around a corner, if I've got an object which is a bit odd, and I've got a piece of hidden detail, if I've got hidden detail lines coming like this, and I've got ones coming along the way as well, then I will create a little corner piece like this and go along. So if this was hidden detail of a box, then this is what I would do. So it's important you use this as well when you're thinking about it. The last line which we might get onto, I'm not sure, we'll see how far we go, is a centre line. A centre line marks the centre of a circle. So if I can see a circle itself, then I need to mark the centre of that circle there to indicate where its location is. So a centre line is long, dash, long, dash. It doesn't have to be super long. If I'm doing the centre of this circle here, I usually go with my long dashes as the centre, short dash, and then a long dash again outside the boundary of the circle. If I've just got an arc, and it's a partial circle, then we don't need the horizontals at the moment on this. If this was an object like this, then I would only be doing the centres, and again, I would draw the centre line. Okay, so just be careful with the centre lines, you need to remember them, they're quite important, tend to get forgotten at times. We'll use them when we need to. Okay, If we come to the orthographic then, here's the shape which we're going to go with. So nothing complex to start with, and I've kind of outlined it in blue from previous lessons. The little red dot indicates the front face of the object. So when we talk about an orthographic, we talk about the front elevation, and that is you viewing the object standing directly in front of it. So if I twist this here, there we go, I cannot see the top, the sides, or underneath the object. That is the shape of my front elevation, that blue outline. And that's what I want to get onto the page. When I look down on top of the object, we're talking about the plan view. And again, if I twist this, the plan view will exist only the rectangular shape that I can see on the top there. And again, thinking from the sides, from the right hand elevation, I can't see the top or the sides or the bottom. And again on the left hand side. Okay, so viewing at 90 degrees. Front elevation, then I'd have to move 90 degrees to get to the plan, 90 degrees to the right to get the right hand, 90 degrees to the left to get the left hand elevation. Okay, I'll just pop that there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do on my page, I'm going to use a ruler. You might want to do this as well, because I want my, what's called my ground line. Now my pencil's a bit darker than yours, remember that. My ground line is just something for this to sit on, so if I was sitting it there, gives it some perspective. Okay, that back. And first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to do it in the middle of my page here. When you're doing yours, you don't have to use full A4, you can use A5. It's not about the size, as I'll tell you, it's actually about the proportion. We're not measuring anything here. I'm not taking a ruler and I'm not saying that so far. No measuring. This is all about perception and proportion. So proportion is looking at the length of this. The length of this is significantly longer than the height of it. And that's how we got to draw that. Okay, so the front elevation is looking directly onto this. Oh, one wee thing. See how I've lined them up? Alignment. Neat and tidy. Neat and tidy. Front elevation is looking, me standing at 90 degrees looking at the front of this. So like I said, when I move that round there, you cannot see the top, the bottom or the sides. And that's how we want to actually draw it here. If I was to draw this, I could actually put this down and trace around it, and that would actually give me my front elevation. The blue lines I've put on there are to help understand that. I'm going to start at the edge here, and this would be the equivalent of my little red dot. And sometimes to help me, if I'm not sure of this, or what the shape should be, I think about the front elevation, the bottom right hand corner, and I think about going for a walk. I think about going up, to the left, down, to the right, up, to the right, down, to the right, and I come back. So it's like going a little walk round to get my shape of the object. Again, you should probably rotate your paper here to make it easier to draw. If you're using a ruler, straight edge, then it'll be easier for you. Now, proportion wise, I just need to make sure that I get the height of the object. So if that's the height of my object there, my height is about half the length of the object. So when I do the length of the object, my length needs to be significantly longer. Okay, and then I'm now here, so I come down. These little portions here, they're even distance by the looks of it. So I'm just going to kind of mark that one there, and using my eye, that's about right. And this goes about halfway up. Okay, so halfway up the height. And back down again. When I'm happy with that, I can actually outline it by going over it a little bit darker. And I am happy with that. That'll do for starters. So I have my front elevation. If I wanted to, I could put my wee red dot on there just to help indicate where that comes from. Now, if you're using a straight edge, your lines will be slightly neater than mine. My wrist is in the wrong position for doing all this. I'm going over it. So that is the front elevation. What does the front elevation tell us? It tells us the length of the object from the left hand side to the right hand side. It tells us the height of the object from the ground line to the top of the object. Next thing I want to do is actually represent the top of the object. So looking directly down on top of it, this will be our plan view. First thing we're going to do, in line here, go up, write the word plan. Because once I do that, then I leave myself enough space to put anything else in. And I always leave myself a little bit of space between the word plan and the actual object itself, because we will put dimensions on things like this later on. Not today, but later on. First thing I'm going to do, I'm going to transfer the length of the object. The plan has the length of the object here in common with the front elevation. So I'm going to bring this up here. So this is my construction line. My construction line. I'll leave myself a little gap between the word plan. And this is the front edge of the object. So this is the blue line going across here. The depth of the object, the width of the object, is from the front of the object to the back of the object. So again, looking at that, the depth is about the same as the height. It's not too far off, so that will be about there. And again, bring yourself in, get yourself a ruler, whatever you want to draw it. And there is the plan view. And I'm going to outline it because I'm pretty sure that's correct. So I can't see anything else there. Looking down on top of it, I just see this big surface here. Okay, it's not quite finished. It's not quite finished because I'm an engineer. I know, looking at the shape of this, there's a hole that goes all the way through the object. And inside that, there are edges. This edge and this edge, they both line up with each other. Same at this side. Here's the edges here. So I need to think about how do I represent them looking at the plan. So if I look down through that object, if I could see through into that object, I would see those edges. I can't see them, so I come back here to my hidden detail line. And these hidden detail lines will run all the way from the front of the object to the back of the object. So here's the hidden detail, here's the edge here. I'm going to use my construction line to bring it up, so to about here, and then I'm going to do my hidden detail line. So there is the right hand side of it, same here at this one. Again, light line to start with, my construction line. Put in my two ends of my hidden detail line and then draw in the remaining parts. So I now have a correct front elevation and plan in good proportion. The next thing to do is think about the right hand side and the left hand side of the object. And there's two ways we can do this. And I'll show you the two ways. One way is quicker than the other, one way is more accurate than the other. But if you are sketching, as long as you're in proportion, it doesn't matter which way around these things go. So if I look from the, let's do the left hand side of the object first. Again, all I'm going to see is a big rectangle. This blue rectangle going around here, nothing else. What does the end elevation have in common? Well, the front elevation, we said it had the length and the height. So if I turn around this way, the end elevation has the height in common with the front elevation. If I think about the end elevation here, look in this direction, so I'm looking here, then the width of the object is also transferred from the plan. So the end elevation has the width from the plan and the height from the front elevation. If we're doing this, I'm going to use the ruler this time, I would add in what we call a change of direction line or a bounce line. And the bounce line is going to come from this point here. If this object was a different shape and it had a bit cut off, it would still come from the imaginary object here. Everything we draw is drawn from a rectangle. Okay. The line I want to put in here is at 45 degrees. Now, if I think about a box, and I go across the diagonals like that, then I'm going to give myself 45 degrees here, 45 and 45, because these sides are the same. So it's a bit thinking like that. If I think about that box, if I go less than that, we're a bit down there. Okay, let's try to get it. We're not measuring, we're trying to get it as close as possible. So my 45 degrees is probably about there. So my 45 degree angle, that is my bounce line. And what happens there is that when I take a line from my plan and I draw horizontally across here, as soon as it hits that bounce line, it changes direction at 90 degrees. So that line there is then going to transfer down here. Okay, so that's 90 degrees in there. And again, same with this one here. I'm going to draw it quickly because it's easier for me to draw lines straight up and down quickly. And that transfers down there. And again, that would be 90 degrees. And I've now taken the width of the object, transferred it down to here. All I need to do now is take the height of the object, take this across, and that will give me the end elevation, the left hand side. So again, I can go back in. I know, looking at that object, because I've physically got it in front of me, this is what I would see. And I would label this up left, and I'm just going to write LF. for shortness just now. And again, thinking about it though, when we look at this here, all we can see is this, but we know that this edge is in here. We've got the bottom edge here. So the bottom edge is along here. There, it's there. But this edge in here, this one here, hiding in there, I know that it's there. It runs from the front of the object to the back, so I need to transfer that across as well. So I'm going to take my construction line across to here, and my hidden detail shows this edge here. That is the complete left-hand elevation. Okay, it's in good proportion. It's got the hidden detail in it, this edge here, so I'm looking here, can't physically see it, but I know it's hiding in there. Okay, I said I'd show the quicker way. So the other way to do this is my right-hand elevation. I'm not going to use a bounce line this time because I've got a good understanding of what the object looks like. There's the height. The width, I know the width is roughly the same as the height, so I can pop that in there. These two should be about similar. It's a little bit narrow. Where's my rubber? Let's widen that just a touch. Okay, so there's the outline shape, and again looking at the edge here, here's the hidden detail line, so the edge which is hidden away in here, I can see it, I know it's there, can't see it, I know it's there, and I'm going to do my hidden detail going across, and I'm going to outline the object. Okay, and label this up, right hand elevation. You could write right hand, RH elevation, as long as it's clear what you actually have. And effectively, there we go, that is our manual orthographic. One thing, my seniors in my design manufacturing class, a couple of them, produced this brilliantly. One or two decided to change things around in terms of where the positions were. The front elevation must always be in the middle of the page, or if we're not showing this, it must always be the one which is the main view. It shows the most information about the object. The plan must always go above the object. The right hand elevation must be the view standing on this side here. The left hand elevation must be the view standing here. We do not draw anything down here underneath. Okay, there's no fancy views or anything like that. This is all we've got. Front, plan, right and left hand elevation. So sometimes I'll ask you to draw always front and plan, but sometimes right or left, or I'll give you the option of producing either or both depending on how much information is on the block. Okay, that's your basic introduction to that. Okay, there's nothing really too complex about what we're actually going to do with that. I'm going to start you off with 2 or 3 simple blocks first, to be done within, say, a day or so, because this is taking a wee bit of time here for you to sit, read through, listen and watch. Okay, so I'll set you a wee exercise to be complete for the end of tomorrow probably, so it'll be about 20 minutes worth of work for a couple of blocks, and then I'll move on to something a little bit more complex. All I need is a picture of your work uploaded. Okay, just try and keep things neat and tidy and with whatever resources you've got at home. If you wanted to use a computer to generate these, then you could, because I'm trying to get the understanding and the proportion. But I would prefer if you had to go manually. So when you come back after the holidays, that we can throw some stuff at you fairly quickly. This is in the assignment, and this is a bit which always gets left near the end and is not always completed brilliantly. Okay, and there's good marks available for this, of just being able to draw some simple shapes, putting in basic details such as plans, front elevations and labels, outlines, hidden detail lines put in correctly, laid out correctly. Some very, very simple marks. Okay, so I'll set some work for you, watch the video through. Any questions, get back to me, come and ask me. I'll go back over and I'll post solutions to what we're actually doing as well, so you can see how well you're actually getting on with that. Okay, so I will speak to you again probably on Thursday morning.